All right, so the next one is Gordon. What's up, Gordon? He says, hey guys, thank you for your help on these Hump Days. Us customers would be lost without your help. Excuse me, us customers would be lost. So thank you very much again. You're welcome as always, Gordon. We appreciate you coming and asking questions every week. The distance from the local searcher to the business is one of the main ranking factors that Google now uses for GMB listings. Yeah, we call that proximity. I know that each geolocation is completely different, so there is no real rule whatsoever, but what is your best guess as to the ballpark radius a searcher needs to be from a business before the business is likely to drop out of the 3-pack? The GMB listings that show when you click more listed under the order of their ranking factors or just randomly. No, there's a lot that can be done to manipulate that. I mean, for example, I don't know if I don't think there is a rule of thumb, but what you'll see is, and you can experience this, like if you know of if you do a search for a particularly well-known brand, for example, and again, if we're talking about service industries, you could pick a well-known, kind of a bigger, like contracting company, like a big plumber. And I use that always as an example, just plumbers. But like in Northern Virginia, there's a couple of them that are really big name brands that have been around for decades, and they've built really big plumbing contracting businesses. Like Michael and Sons is one of them. Another one's like JD Flood. So my point is, they can have a location, and because of its inherent authority that it's accrued, right? Then their maps listing can show up way beyond the normal proximity filter, so to speak, or proximity limitations that we typically see for smaller type businesses. And that's because of the authority of the brand, as well as the associated website, the number of citations, the number of co-citations, so places that they've been mentioned on the web. All of that kind of stuff can really help push their maps listing into a much wider proximity area than a smaller business would be that has less authority, right? That's what we teach in Local GMB Pro, though, is how to actually manipulate that kind of stuff. So even the little guy can get to there. It takes consistent effort. And, it's something that has to be done consistently over time in order to get those kind of results. Typically, the bigger companies, they just have those results because people go do brand searches for them, which, by the way, that's one of the biggest ranking factors right now, guys, is what we call navigational search queries. We've talked about those in many years, or over the many years now, for when we talked about CT spam or click-through spam. I'm seeing it time and again right now, specifically, that if you can get people to do, and I'm not talking about buying spam clicks and spam searches, but if you can get real people to do real searches for a brand name, and then when it comes up, when the website comes up, click through to that website or to the maps listing, either one, that is a huge SEO ranking signal that will really kind of catapult you into that a high authority status, so that you can overcome a lot of those proximity issues. You have to figure out ways to kind of social engineer that. One way to do it, I know for sure from testing recently, is through direct mail, but there's a ton of other ways to do that too. But I'm just saying I don't know if there is a rule of thumb. I know if the organization or the company, the GMB and the website doesn't have a lot of authority built, then the proximity could be very, very narrow, right? If the more authority that it builds, then the broader that proximity area can be, and you'll start to see those to rank higher. So I know that's probably not a real clear-cut answer. Marco, I know, will chime in on this one. But, again, because proximity, it really is going to depend on authority. But my point is I know for sure, because I've got clients where you'll see some of their competitors that will be, 3 cities over, and yet they're still showing in the 3-pack. And they say, well, how can that be? Well, because they've been around for a lot longer. They've got much bigger marketing budgets. We can get there, but you're going to have to come off some more money. That makes sense. Margo, what say you?
This is a really interesting question, and I'll take the last part of it first. Are they listed in the order of their ranking factors or randomly? They're listed according to the relevance of the location of the person doing the search, the proximity to the person doing the search. And how are you able to determine this? Manhattan, right? New York City is really small. It's about 23 square miles, right? And I've had someone go in a building that has 2 entrances, right? Let's say on the east side and on the north side, for example, right? So it's around the corner. And they've gotten two separate sets of data, even though all that changed was about maybe half a block in distance. So it's really depending upon what Google considers is relevant to that person doing the query, considering the proximity of the place that the person is looking for. And how you override that is just how Bradley said. You have to become relevant, trusted, and authoritative in the niche, so that you override a little bit of that proximity factor, which is what's taking place right at that moment. And so back to the first part of that question. Yes, it's the main ranking factor. The geolocation has a lot to do with it. And again, we teach you how to kind of get around the proximity. Now, what the radius is, I have no idea. I have a lot of data that I will have to input into a computer and run some math to see if I can get something out of it, but I just don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, and I think the radius would vary depending on how much weight the site has or the brand has. You know what I mean?
Because we know that it bleeds, right? We know that it bleeds into surrounding suburbs. We've seen that. And so that there is no definitive radius. You can increase that, you can decrease that if you lose some of that trust and authority, and of course activity, right? Activity, relevance, trust, and authority. Then you're going to lose maybe how wide that radius is expanded. Guys, it's so hard to answer these questions because we're not sitting there looking at a computer that's hooked up to Google and seeing what Google is giving us back. All we can tell you is what we've seen from what we've tested. So, and those are the things that we've seen.
And so, we talked about this on a couple of recent webinars, Marco, I believe on Hump Day Hangouts as well. So stop me if I'm revealing too much, but I don't think I am, because we're just going to talk about this on more of a conceptual level. We've got time because I don't see a lot of other questions coming through anyways. But one of the things, like I just mentioned, is how to manipulate kind of what is called site weight or brand authority, right? It was a patent that Google published, many years ago. I think it was 2010 or 11 or maybe 12. When I first was introduced to it, it was around 2011, I believe, by Ivan Budimir, who was, had a really big influence on my local SEO career, really. Anyways, we've talked about this in the past with the CT spam, the click-through spam stuff. And that very early on, Google had determined that navigational search queries would make if there were two competitive sites, all things being equal, and I know that's very difficult to do, but just theoretically, if there was two competing sites and they were very similar in nature as far as SEO value, on page, backlink profile, all of that kind of stuff, if one of the brands, right? So let's say site A, its particular brand name, if there was a lot of navigational search queries where people would search by that company by name, or that website by name, or that name plus contact, or name plus phone, or name plus location, any variation or number of what they call navigational search queries, then Google would recognize that as a higher authority, and it was called the site weight patent, and that was the nickname for it, but it would give that site more weight, right? So it would be weighted heavier, it would be more authoritative. And so Google would push that one above to the top of the search results or above the other competitor because of that nature, that very reason, right? And so we've talked about a number of ways to do that. We've talked about manipulating that through click-through spam in the past, which I don't recommend anymore because most of those are bots. They're very difficult. Like they just don't get counted anymore. It's not that I think they're going to be negative or detrimental or harm or, hurt your rankings, but I don't think that they don't get counted anymore. We've talked about doing that through Facebook ads or, through ads. You can do that through YouTube ads and even search ads and display ads more recently, because display ads are a heck of a lot cheaper than search ads. But also if you can get people through other marketing channels to go search for brand names, and then when they find when the brand comes up and the various tier 1 assets or branded assets come up, they start to click through. They don't have to just click through to the website or the GMB map, right? Because they could click through the Facebook page, and Google still sees that. Google knows that they're clicking through from the search results page to a branded asset, and in perhaps even clicking through from the branded asset ultimately to the website or to the Google map. And Google can track all of that stuff. And all of those are incredibly good engagement signals that add weight, right? They add site weight or brand weight in this case. But one of the things that I know Marco has mentioned recently, and Hernan has followed up with it, is, or seconded it, co-signed it, so to speak, is that if you have conversion goals that are being achieved on your assets, right? Which, think about what a conversion goal is. A conversion goal on a website could be somebody filling out a contact request form. Or if you're selling a product, it could be purchasing a product. Or if you're building an email list, it could be completing an opt-in form, right? But on a local level, it's typically going to be contact request form. If somebody's completing a conversion goal on a GMB asset, it could be clicking the tap to call button or clicking driving directions if it's a storefront business, right? Those are all considered conversion goals. Then if you have conversion tracking set up through Google Ads specifically on the site, even if you're not running ads, which I recommend that you do, especially display ads, really, even if you don't have the budget for search ads, you could still set up a very inexpensive display campaign. And also on a remarketing campaign, remarketing is even cheaper. Doing building a remarketing list and getting clicks from the Google Display Network on a remarketing list is cheaper than cold traffic clicks, right? But still set up conversion tracking through the Google Ads platform and all of that, because even organic traffic that comes, it's going to register as a conversion. It won't show as a conversion in the ads platform, but it's that firing mechanism through Google Tag Manager and everything. When you have the conversion tracking set up, the conversion goals set up inside of ads, for example, and you can do this in analytics as well. It's that triggering, that firing mechanism of when somebody converts and goes to, for example, a thank you page or whatever, that again starts to build and accrue site weight. And that's really helps to, it will give you an edge over competitors that aren't doing that. So think about if you, and you can even experiment with this, because I know for a fact that you'll see difference in results. Let's say you got 2 lead gen properties and you're getting, somewhat similar traffic on both of them. If you take one of them and put the conversion tracking on, and even if you're not running ads, which I still, again, recommend that you run at least remarketing ads, you'll see that if you're getting conversions on both of those, but only one of them has conversion tracking set up in either Google Ads and or analytics, you'll see that one will start to actually outrank or do better, perform better in search than the other one will that doesn't have that conversion tracking set up. And why is that? And it's because, again, Google's tracking that, and it's a way to pipe data directly to Google, stating that the visitors that are visiting your brand site, your website in this case, are actually completing the conversion goal that you had set, which means they're getting what they were seeking, right? They were finding the information that they were seeking when they went to Google search to begin with. And when they're interacting with your brand, they're getting satisfied, that query satisfied by completing that conversion goal. And so it's very, very important. Even if you're not running ads, again, I recommend that you still set up Google Ads conversion tracking, or you can do it via analytics. If nothing else, start building a remarketing list and running very inexpensive remarketing campaign ads so that Google can see all that. Plus, that's how you start to increase your ART, activity, relevancy, trust, and authority, as Marco always calls it, because you'll start getting visitors that will engage with your brand more than once. And then that's another good brand signal or ranking signal, right? Repeat visits. So you want to comment on that, guys?
I think that you put it beautifully, Bradley.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to add, in getting back to the GMB, that it's how you relate the entity to the geolocation and the keywords. So that what you're doing is you're switching the map to a knowledge panel, or the entity is becoming the keyword for that niche. Right? Because one thing is adding site weight and getting all of that action on the website. When we're talking about the map pack, it's actually the entity. Right? It becomes all about what's going to be delivered to that person doing the query, and it's generally on a mobile phone, right? Because most what do you call it? Most of these searches, especially 3-pack, they get delivered on that phone or on that mobile device. And that's what Google is actually looking for. That it's how you relate the entity to the geolocation and the keywords in the niche. And again, we've done so much stuff in Manhattan and New York City that this is like I know what's taking place, and Google will tell you if you read all of the different patents and everything that's going on right now. Google will tell you exactly what it is that you need to do, so that you can even change a 3-pack. You can even get the map out of there, and you get a knowledge panel instead. That's when you know you're the authority and the trusted entity, trusted authority in the niche.
Very good. So hopefully that was helpful, Gordon.